Director Scholas. Quorum Chair.
All right. We have presentation items. Now we'll proceed to those presentation items. Chief Audit Officer Ed Sutherland provide the board's internal audit update, billing collections audit report. And Ed, please proceed.
Thank you so much. Can you launch my PowerPoint, please, gents? It's the PowerPoint on the desktop. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll start with, we finished our billing collections audit this last quarter. This was a huge review. This basically encompassed everything, including billing and collections, but to be clear, this did not include the meter shop or the meter staff, but essentially everything else financial having to do with this process. The report, which is included in your packet, showed 7 findings. The first issue is aged accounts receivable. We noted a lack of controls to corroborate the regular review of accounts with excessively aged AR and the collection efforts associated with reducing those balances. We know we have efforts going on to clear those, but it's all about, for our team, was the corroboration of those efforts and having those documented moving forward to show exactly what we're doing at an account level and having those signed off by management on a regular basis. So our recommendation was to produce a quarterly report, which I think monthly probably would have been too excessive, but at least quarterly have outstanding AR printed out and signed off either electronically or manually by management. At the time of the review, we had about $71 million over 90 outstanding. Greg can correct me if any of these things are wrong.
So this question has come up before, and the concern has always been, is it 71 million spread out over 70 million customers, or is it 71 million with 2/3 of it coming from 10 people? Has that been given more clarity in this report?
Good question. We did the reports on top 10 for inactive and active. Yeah. So obviously, active is things that still have a meter, inactive for which we got to a point where the meter had to be removed. But the top 10 is in here. But across how many bills?
I'm sorry, how many? 25,000 customers active.
Is that what it is?
Another 12 or so thousand inactive. So it's a large volume of customers versus just a concentrated few.
Okay, so it's not a bunch of people owe us a lot of money. It's quite a few people owe us more modest amounts of money.
Yeah, like I'm looking at the report right now. For example, there's one customer that owes 1.1 mil.
Okay.
One customer loan. Looking at that particular area of the report, is there cause for a person to be in an active and an inactive account based on the report? There's a customer that's in both listings.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Now, they could have 2 different accounts. It could be large commercial and small commercial, right?
Yes. Yeah.
They could certainly have 2 different accounts.
Yeah, one customer, multi-unit business operator, can have one account inactive, one account active.
Mm-hmm. With the same value being owed over 90 days past due?
Let me see.
Yeah.
I have to check. Which one is it, Doc?
It is. Give me 1 second. Looks like Heritage Lane condo.
705. Heritage Lane condo. Oh. Let's see. Inactive.
That's a particular condominium association we asked legal to assist with. So there's issues with their overall set of accounts.
Got it.
But yeah, if it's the same exact meter and value, it's probably a data issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll check on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt, please.
No, it's good. The second issue we had was notifications of delinquency. Customers are only receiving one formal letter before their meters being removed. We used to have a process of IVR, which is voice response phone calls going out on a regular basis. It was, according to local management, it was buggy and not consistent, so that was discontinued. But as a result, we only have one letter going out that essentially outlines the chronology of lack of payment and then meter removal. And then the work order for that goes out 70 days, and then meter removal happens at 90 days. So, well, our recommendation was to have at least one more formal snail mail notification going out, specifically not with a bill, but specifically addressing the outstanding balance, so that it would reduce the risk of erroneous meter removal in the future. People just, and of course, it's not tracked or metered mail; it's regular snail mail. So if one's lost, you got nothing.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I was thinking. Are there any other forms of communication you're looking at implementing in addition to just mail? Since the phone calls are not working, anything else
no,
to
I
add
would
to the recommendations?
We're in the process of
Email, text
upgrading
message?
the IVR system.
Yeah,
So once that's completed, we'll be able to go back to automated notifications.
And I know this is very sort of retro. Is there a public notice thing, like where we can just sort of like, like how you post in the paper properties that are sort of delinquent and having problems, and that counts as notification?
Like a letter to the customer is the minimum, so we're doing that. So there's other suggestions and other better ways to reach people electronically.
Mhm.
But at this time, the minimum is being done, so it's a matter of what additional things can we do to improve processes, which I think we're taking a look at all these processes to
Well, the
improve.
public notice thing is something I'm thinking about, because we're in the conundrum of, if we have a corporate client that is delinquent, but they have tenants that are perfectly fine tenants, but turning off the service doesn't necessarily hurt the person that technically owes us the money, but leaves several residents who, through no fault of their own, will now be outside of water. A public notice would be a way of notifying them, like, hey, your landlord's not paying the water bill. Which, how would you know that?
And for large, especially large multi-unit, there is a process, Yolanda, please correct me if I'm wrong, where we go and have to sort of like door hang a notification in at least a couple of places.
Yes, so that will have to be done publicly on the particular site, the unit, as well as the main office. However, I believe the council has asked the board not to proceed with multifamily unit shutoffs. So we have not done that. But yes, there is in our policy, if there's a multifamily unit, to actually post on the unit itself at the main housing unit.
Entrance,
Could we-
visible spaces.
Okay.
So like in the lobby of your condo, building at the entrance, and
Mhm.
it's like a full notice that the account of the entire building is delinquent and it's going to be shut off. And that encourages residents or tenants to call their property management company or whoever.
yeah, but that's not happening, so
Okay.
I would still like for us to have detailed procedures in place that allows for proper notification in the event that we are at some point in the future allowed to move forward with those types of shutoffs.
But even if we're not moving forward with types of shutoff, I just think that people won't know. Like I don't know that anybody living in these places and spaces would know that their landlord was not paying. Like, how would they know?
So you're asking, why can't we just post something, not a shut-off notice,
Yeah.
but post
To notify.
Yeah, to let the tenants know that the landlord is not paying for their water.
Sure. Like, and either if we can post it there, we can post it in the paper or whatever public notification section. And I'm perfectly fine with that moving towards shut off, but I do think that notification is reasonable.
Yeah, no, I think that is reasonable, and maybe it will entice the tenants to maybe question why the landlord is not paying and get something going. So,
Okay.
yeah, no downside to it at all.
Yeah.
I think even some social media about, like messaging about, is your landlord paying, or, just like even putting it out there that, not naming names in social media, but kind of like, how do we alert people that that's an issue, that landlords may not be paying? And then the bugginess, was that telephone or was that text?
that was
That
they were telephone, right?
Telephone, yeah.
IVR, voice response.
Yeah, and one of the things that has not occurred consistently throughout many years is updating our customers' primary contact information. That includes emails, telephone numbers, and such.
Yeah.
So we've already began maybe a month or two ago to set the expectation with customer-facing staff that every time, which is typical in the industry,
It is.
right? Every time you call, I don't know, AT&T, Verizon, or whoever, they ask you for your most recent telephone number, email address, just to confirm that we have the correct and most updated info. So we feel more confident that you're going to receive any notification that you need.
The third issue was non-revenue water. By law, we have to provide some accounts with water essentially gratis to a certain threshold, of course, from Louisiana revised statutes. And this issue was kind of bifurcated to two smaller issues. One was just billing inconsistencies. Some of them, the NRW accounts we do yearly, Orleans Parish School Board and Audubon Park as well. But they had not been done at the time of this audit, had been billed for their above threshold. They were in the process of moving Audubon Park to a monthly billing system, and that kind of became our recommendation. We should just bill NRW accounts monthly, just like we do everybody else, rather than having a separate system of billing for NRW accounts. That's the first kind of sub recommendation. And the second one was that we had about, we had 19 accounts that did not fit what we saw the definition of what should be allowed for NRW, non-revenue water within the statute. The good news here is that the risk is relatively low. We only forewent billing of about $15,000, but we need stronger controls around the process of how someone or how an account becomes an NRW account, what the checks are, should be multiple levels of management sign off, right? Those kinds of things. And just as a side note, it looked like there was possibly some confusion with what are hydrant accounts, right? So a hydrant account is when a construction contractor gets a temporary hydrant in order just to perform the construction work, and then we build them at the end. So some of these are construction companies, so we noted that might be a possible area of conflation there. So I think they agreed to both of those, right, guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fourth is employee system access review. We noted a fairly strong controlled process on the front end. When you have a new user, there's a management form that needs to be filled out exactly how the level of access each person uses in CSM. However, there's nothing post that initial rollout, right? So if someone gets relocated to a different area within billing, they get promoted, or a different area within the utility, there's no check on. We just keep adding more access to that individual, and that individual becomes closer and closer to an admin or a super user, right? So because of that, we're recommending a quarterly review, just a simple printout from IT to provide to management, just to sign off on high. Yes, these people's access are commensurate with what their job functions are at current, right? And this is management's control. IT shouldn't know what person should do day to day, right? But they should provide the data.
Did you look at the reverse in terms of when people leave, making sure that their access is turned off as well, and that happens in a timely manner?
We didn't review offboarding, but because that's more of an IT control, and this was a billing review, but it's a good thing. I mean, IT, I think, has a whole process for offboarding all your things, right? Your Outlook and the systems you have access to. So, right.
Okay.
So yeah, our recommendation is a quarterly review.
And then if somebody finds someone that has access that's not commensurate with what their new role is, how long does it take to reconcile that?
Probably within a day or two.
Okay.
And what happens is that, especially in customer service, because we're talking about the billing system, right? Mostly. So people get hired, and generally what happens in customer service is that contact center and retail locations are like the entry-level entrance positions, right? And then people, as they gain experience, get promoted to move around, get promoted, move to other departments. And what's happening currently is that the system access is changed or ad hoc, right? So you move over here, then we change your access levels, but not in a systematic, more continuous way that is driven by the division just for audit purposes and to avoid anything that we don't want to occur.
Fifth issue we had was manual bill adjustments. During the audit, we noted that employees had the ability to manually adjust a bill before it gets disseminated and sent out. And there's really no management sign-off on when that happens or any kind of oversight at a high level when those happens. There is a timestamp that occurs and a comment field for when that needs to occur, but there's no oversight. Like I said, we noted that, and the response we got from local management is that it's such a routine part of the actual billing process that the transactions would number in the thousands is what they said. So our recommendation was, look, the answer is we can't review everything, but the answer is also not no review, right? So establish some kind of threshold to review a subset of these on a regular basis, whether that's materiality, whether that's volume per user, right? Establish some kind of benchmarks that it would be to get a report that's relatively, not intrusive for each manager to sign off on a regular basis. I think we recommended monthly.
What's easiest for you guys to operationalize?
Probably to do a random sample. So what happens is that if a bill, and I know we've had these discussions numerous times, but if a bill is over a certain percentage or below of a certain average, then that bill gets flagged, right? And it gets pulled and manually reviewed by an individual or a bunch of individuals. And the volume is so high that we just not even feasible to review every single one of those. So the easiest way would be to take a random sample, a consistent number every single month, and have it reviewed by a supervisor or manager. And then that would check the box regarding this requirement.
Okay.
The sixth issue is hearings and the timing of them, how we get from one end to actual completion. What we noted is the area that's taking the longest is the investigation. But obviously the investigation piece is done by someone in metering or GSO usually, or both. So that group is out of the scope of this review. But what we can do is, there was no follow-up with those teams inside of 90 days. So in other words, a dispute happens, the first thing that should happen is investigation of, the customer's account, distribution main, those kinds of things, make sure there's no leaks. So that part is taking longer as part of this process. So we were asking for, I think, and our recommendation was generally to just quicker follow-up with the investigations team to make sure they get prioritized appropriately on their end, just to keep the process moving. Because some of them we noted, I think Renee I think we have about 4,000 customer disputes right now. Some of them were taking, up to a year or two. So that was a recommendation there. And lastly, documentation of directives. The billing team generally uses smart lists to accomplish the things that they do. We just need more formalization around some of the policies and procedures. A lot of training is being done by rote or, or just by word of mouth, or like I said, smart lists are basically a way for you to filter and compartmentalize your area of performing the bill review, right? So just policy procedures on about 7 or 8 functions. Just, they don't need to be incredibly detailed, but you'd be amazed if you have, a job aid or a one-pager. It's enough to keep people on the same page going through these processes. That was our billing review. And I received their response to this, but just recently, so I haven't had time to go through it in detail. So I appreciate them showing up to provide context for these.
How is this being coordinated with, providing information to the governor's committee and review process? Is he communicate? Are you communicating directly with them, Ed, or you got any requests from them?
I'm not, and I haven't had a request thus far. I'll be at the meeting on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, this is an internal document, but we have been providing the task force group with all sorts of information, not necessarily this audit, though.
Okay.
But they have lots of documents from us in terms of processes, vacancies, and many other issues.
Okay.
As far as, I'm sorry, new slide. I forget. There we go. As far as ongoing right now, we're doing an audit of occupational safety. Detailed testing is ongoing. It's going relatively well. To be clear, this review only includes post-incident reactive controls. When we met with management initially about starting this review, occupational safety is, as you can understand, is a huge topic. So we decided to kind of tackle it in two pieces. One being reactive controls only. So basically things that happen, do we have the controls in place in the immediate wake of an incident, right? Accident response and containment, severity mitigation, incident recordation, what data are we capturing in our systems and our risk management systems, investigation, and then of course, maybe the most important, the differentiation and classification between an accident without injury, an accident with injury, and what is a near miss, and are we getting all of those incidents in? Obviously, the near miss is something, if it happens, by very definition, there's almost no evidence, right? With an injury, you have someone injured. Accident with no injury, you have a destruction of property or some other type of situation happening. So we want to make sure we're capturing all of the data that we're supposed to get. As I said, detailed testing is ongoing. We will look at the proactive side, which is training, directive controls to make sure all employees know what to do to equip them to do their jobs in a safe manner, but that'll be done in a separate review to make sure it gets the attention it needs. Okay, let's see. Just a refresher, I know I covered this last quarter, but before we do the audit plan, I wanted to make sure we know how we got here. This is a real quick refresher on the risk assessment. We sent a risk assessment questionnaire to all departmental managers. It was 24 respondents overall. I had individual meetings with each leadership team member, including Hassan, as well as meetings, reports, and reviews from external stakeholders and regulators. So that'll be reports from the IG's office, LLA, and other agencies providing federal oversight of the utility. And this is what we arrived at. There it is. So our proposed 2024 audit plan, warehouse controls over brass and copper. If you recall, in 2016, we had a very large theft of brass within the utility. Enough time has passed. That was in late 2016 when that came to light. So enough time has passed in our estimation that we should have stronger controls in place now to prevent those type of events from occurring. We're going to look at everything between, we're going to start at the procurement of the brass to the ordering of it, inventorying of it, regular counts to down to physical safeguarding, and then of course surplus coming back, right? I think that's might be something that might be a little more focused for this, meaning that if you're called out to replace a meter, you should get the broken pieces back with you, and we can surplus those to local stockyards and things. Secondly, the CATS and data mining rollout. CATS stands for Computer Assisted Audit Techniques. This won't necessarily result in a report formally, but this is something that I had experience with in my career, and we decided it was a good area to educate the staff in. The first one we're going to do is out at GSO. Last year, we had an incident where we didn't have a lot of confidence that all the water testing was being done. So we come up with an idea we have GPS data collected for the trucks now. So the test should take a certain number of minutes depending on what you're doing. This is chlorine testing and coliform testing, right? So it should take at least 6 or 7 minutes. We were seeing some stops shorter, 2, 3. Is that haphazard? Did they do it at all? We don't know. We need to do a deeper dive and check that. So with this tool, it allows, as you can imagine, the data is voluminous, right? With a lot of employees making a lot of stops. And one, are they doing the work they're doing when they make the stops they're making? And two, we can also get an idea of data aberrations of them going off their route too far, right? And things like that. So like I said, we're going to start with GSO. We have 3 licenses for this tool. We'll start with GSO almost immediately. Plumbing department, I think just gave everyone needs a refresher. In 2021, we had an employee diverting funds from plumbers to himself for permitting. That, of course, employee was brought to justice and is now paying restitution to the utility. So same thing here. I think enough time has now passed to where we should have some controls in place to prevent these things from occurring again. Mainly segregation of duties between receipt of funds and issuance of the permitting. That's where we'll start with that one. And then lastly, the engineering and construction inspections. Just through the risk assessment noted kind of a lack of formalized procedures. Guidelines for relationships with contractors probably need some guidance and formalization as well. And just some management oversight of the process of construction and inspections also need some work. So this was the plan for 2024. The next item, once I finish, of course, we'll vote on it. But just a reminder that if anything comes up throughout the year, this as ratified in our committees, our committee charters, we can change this or augment if something comes up later and we need to. But we just need to have a plan to move forward for 2024. Last two things real quick. Civil service, I just want to note that they've been working with us and it's been helpful. I think I mentioned before that we had 2 employees that failed the exam. We liked them, they came through the process, but they failed the finance and auditing exam. I don't think it was just because of us that civil service initiated this, but I think we had a role because they're doing a review of the exam question by question. I went to civil service for 3 2-hour sessions. We noted whether this person would need to have this information or had learned this from a bachelor's degree in finance or accounting, and whether they would need to know it day one. Is this something that they could be trained? How necessary is it needed? Those kinds of things. So they were great sessions. People from all over the city came. Hopefully it'll come for a review of the exam and we'll get some better applicants from that. Right now we're working with an audit senior and a new staff internal auditor. We hired at the end of last year. Positions open right now. We have a supervisor. I just made posts on Indeed and LinkedIn. I think I had 2 from the Indeed post. I checked yesterday and 7 from Indeed. And we might have some from civil service as well. I'm gonna check today. And then after that, we have 2 staff open. The auditor is a staff position, 3 to 5 years experience needed, and an assistant, we are open for college grads. And then the last item, I just wanted to put this on everyone's radar real quick. There is a new internal audit standard being put out by the Institute of Internal Auditors, which is what we follow. It just came out in PDF form right here in January. I'm currently reading through it, but we need to be in compliance with it in 1/1/25. There are not a lot of differences, some differences in nomenclature. The big difference I see is that our reports moving forward will have to have a rating. We'll have to, some kind of rating system, meaning high risk, low risk, or even the recommendations and the issues themselves will have to be high and lower risk. There are some other changes, and like I said, I'm reading through it now, but there's the general timeline. We're going to order a hard copy in Q2 for the team to start learning them. And the main thing I wanted to put this on y'all's calendar for is we're going to have new charters in 2025.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
It only took us.
But they'll be sleeker.
months to adopt
They'll be
that.
sleeker, by the way. They'll be smaller. They're combining several areas into one. That's kind of what that logo is about. So the charters will be smaller and more succinct.
I had a quick question
Sure.
about the civil service exam.
Yeah, sure.
So when we get candidates in, they're not required to take that exam before they're given to us as qualified candidates. They're allowed to take the exam after they're hired.
Great question.
Yeah.
So the candidates that I had were from outside posts. I had posts on LinkedIn or Indeed.
Got it.
So in order, civil service is great, but they'll be flat out and tell you, we will not help with recruitment. That is your deal. So we go and find people and they'll go through an interview process here. And if we want to extend them an offer, we say, great, now you need to formally apply, please. And at that point, they get put on the register. Once they're on the register, we can extend them an offer. They can also just apply directly, but it's hard to get the word out with
Yeah.
just the civil service post. So that's what happened.
Got
They
it.
came in through Indeed, we pushed them to civil service, and
Mhm.
they unfortunately did not pass the exam.
Got it. Thank you. for
Sure.
that.
So going back to the 2024 plan,
Yeah.
I really loved hearing the fact that, I think when things happen, we're in the news, something's gone awry.
Mhm.
Ghassan says, we're dealing with it, we're dealing with whatever employees were involved, that kind of thing. And then it's kind of over and people sort of forget, but they don't forget because it lingers in terms of our reputation
Sure.
and stuff like that. And so, and I have even forgotten about some of the things that you mentioned. And what you were saying is that, okay, yes, we dealt with that at that moment, but now we're looking at the systems
Yeah.
and figuring out like how we can be sure that it will never happen again.
Right.
And this kind of goes to what Maurice was saying about, the task force and just the public in general. And I don't know the best way of doing this, but like, I would love to be proactive about the fact that we're doing that. And so even if they haven't requested information, they may not know that this function exists.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I feel like that, I just remember Paul Rainwater saying, yeah, I'm going to be meeting with some of the staff at the Sewage and Water Board and stuff. And that's the kind of thing that I feel like they should know, because it's not just that we dealt with it at the moment, but now we're going back and looking at the systems.
Yeah,
And
right.
like preventing it in the future. And that's a whole different ballgame. And I just think people don't know, and they don't have confidence that we actually do that.
Yeah, I mean, I took some notes based on your comment earlier, and now you're kind of cementing it.
Mhm.
We'll consider either having Ed, maybe this coming session will be exclusively public comments.
Right.
So we are part of the public, so maybe Ed can come up and share some of the findings. We can send them an executive, like a one pager based on the audit, just to show them all the improvements we've made. And creating an internal audit is an accomplishment on its own. And now
having
the
like a
the
whole-
fruits of
Yeah, we have like a department, we have staff.
yeah.
We have Ed.
Yeah.
And then there's things that we're now doing
Yeah,
proactively. They have to know.
I think it's a good idea. We'll send them a one pager, and then maybe Ed can
Yeah.
kind of
And I know the
elaborate.
danger is it kind of brings stuff back up, right? That people like the public may just not be thinking about, but at the same time, we're just
It's a better
the
light.
more that we can show that we're being extremely proactive,
Mhm.
Okay.
the more credibility we will earn. And so I was really impressed by this, and I just want to figure out like how we get that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're doing the work, right? Like we're pulling back our own covers, right? Digging deep
Exactly.
and doing the work. And I think it needs to be highlighted. I
mean,
agree.
this is a
Sure.
public meeting. We're
Yep.
we're pulling, we're saying publicly,
Yeah.
what we're doing anyway.
Yeah.
So,
And prior to the plumbing investigation, we had already transitioned to with the city doing, joining them in One Stop.
That's right.
So that didn't get, like you said,
Much
revealed.
publicity,
yeah.
Right, so we already recognized, I think the team had already recognized that there were some issues. We were in transition already, working with the city to actually transition to One Stop. And just FYI, restitution for that investigation has already been received.
Oh, it's done. Good. Didn't know that.
Mm.
Cool. Well, that's all I had. I just need the
Sure.
resolution, please, for the
All right.
audit plan.
So now we'll proceed to the action item on our agenda. And I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution R 064-2024.
So moved.
And second it.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All right, and with that, there's no opposition. It carries, the motion carries. All right, any public comments?
No public comment, Chair.
All right, if there are no other matters, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, it's been moved,
Second.
and it's been moved and seconded, and we now stand adjourned at 9.